Welcome to Cub Youth, our webinar on our webinar 101 on serving clergy and understanding the credentialing process. We're super excited today to have Reverend Herb Frost with us and Danielle Ing with us today from Serve Clergy at Cub offices. And we just want to say hello to all of our youth workers that are watching on Zoom, whether live or eventually as you review the recording. But we hope that you're having a wonderful Advent, that you have a great Christmas and New Year's, and that this time of year will be a time to um, just jump into all of the goodness of who Christ is and our awaiting of Christ's arrival in our lives and the hope that Christ brings to us. But also, I hope it's a space of rest and connection in the midst of all the hustle and bustle of ministry. We thought it was really important as our interim youth team to have some of our leadership and covenant offices come and join us. I know oftentimes at Midwinter Youth Workers Connection or annual meeting, it's hard to touch base and to put faces to all the incredible work that gets done in our denomination. And so today I wanted to introduce to you, if you haven't met him already, Herb Frost. I'm going to read a little bit about his bio that he shared with me, and it's pretty fascinating. There are lots of new things I learned about you. So, Herb was born in South Dakota. He grew up in Western Massachusetts, attended Cornell University, Springfield College, and University of Massachusetts. He graduated with a BS in chemistry and a master's in polymer science and engineering. He then received his Master's of Divinity from Michigan Theological Seminary, um, which has since merged into Moody Theological Seminary. Herb met his wife, Paula, and if you have not met Paula, you need to meet Paula. She's incredible. While he was in graduate school, each of them have asked to receive staff ministry training with navigators and an international parachurch ministry that focuses on evangelism, discipleship, and equipping leaders for service. After being married, they continue to pursue Christ and his priorities in their journey of leading and eventually leading them to from New England to Colorado to Minnesota and then to Michigan. Herb and Paula planted Castle Oaks Covenant in Castle Rock, Colorado. They subsequently served Covenant churches in Minnesota, New England, and Michigan. For the last 5 years, Herb has served the clergy of the ECC, first as Director of Vocational and Spiritual Development, and now as Executive Minister of Ordered Ministry and Serve Clergy. Herb and Paula have 3 adult children who are each with their spouses seeking Christ and serving him. They are Nana and Pop to 3 delightful grandchildren. And if you've heard Herb speak, you've gotten to see fun pictures. So we're just delighted that you're here. We're going to have Herb go first and kind of share your role as our executive director and especially what it means for this area of ministry, what the purpose is, and the ways that your area specifically reaches our youth pastors and can offer support to them. So I'll leave the floor to you. But yeah, we're really thankful you're here.
Thank you, Ruby. And I know I sent that bio to you, and I don't know how it says 3 delightful grandchildren. I actually have 6 grandchildren, and if they
Wow.
think that only 3 of them are delightful, then I'm going to be in big trouble. So,
Yeah.
no, it's good to be with you. And Paula and I have deeply appreciated the work of the children, youth, and family ministry area of the Covenant over the years. And at Midwinter, Paula will be at the Youth and Children Connection event, so you'll have a chance to see and meet her. And learn the reality of what Ruby said about her. So just delighted to be here.
Yes.
As the executive minister of Ordered Ministry and Served Clergy, it's actually those are two different and yet related entities, and I'll just say a couple words about them. Ordered Ministry is the area of ministry that is credentialed clergy in the Evangelical Covenant Church, and Danielle is our director of credentialing. And when people ask me what they need to know about credentialing in the covenant, I say what you need to know about credentialing in the covenant is danielle.ng@covchurch.org,
Yeah.
because that's her email address, and that's the best way to get answers about credentialing. But in the work of served clergy and ordered ministry, we have three distinct functions that feed into each other. They're fluid, but they're definable. And the first is the area of credentialing, and that's the process by which individuals are in community with their local congregation, with their regional committee on ministerial standing, and ultimately with ordered ministry, discerning whether or not God has a call to vocational ministry on their lives. And that could be anything from bivocational ministry to a license of some kind to consecrated for global service. So our global personnel, as well as the ordination to what's typically church ministry, but some kind of ministry that involves the teaching, the administering of sacraments, the care of vulnerable people. Um, the so that's the area of credentialing. The second is we resource our pastors. And over the last 5 years, well, actually, it goes back 15 years ago. We first received a grant from the Lilly Endowment for sustaining pastoral excellence. Our second substantial grant that we received from them was for dealing with economic challenges facing pastoral leaders. And the third one is thriving in ministry. We have, in the last 5 years, so 5 years ago, we kicked off the work for thriving in ministry, and that is the area where resources are available for covenant pastors, for spiritual direction, for coaching, for sabbatical. If a pastor is eligible for a sabbatical in their place of service, we provide a small grant to come alongside that. For personal retreats, or in one of the cohorts that has been most recently uh, kicked off is it's actually a series of groups. It's called Walking Together. And that's where groups of pastors say, we want to walk together for this next 6 to 12 months and put together a proposal to us to say, is there any money available for us to gather to do the kinds of things that we envision as we walk together for this year? And by the way, Marty Berger is the one who oversees the work in this. And Marty was the director of youth ministries for the Covenant for 20 years, and then has worked in the served clergy area for the last 5, which just simply broadens her emphasis. And now in this role, she's able to leverage some of the denominational resources to continue to invest in our staff ministry folks. So that's an important one. And so I'm not going to give you the full laundry list of all the different things that we offer, but recognize that we want to come alongside our pastors, the people who are involved in ministry in our churches, from the youngest to the oldest, from the children to the silver hairs, and that's probably impolite to say it that way, but that's what I just said. So
I have
um,
silver hair.
yeah, that's right. I do too. So there we
So
go.
thank you.
Yeah. So thanks for that's a good rescue, Ruby. Thank you. Um, and so that area of resourcing is continues to be growing and expanding. In the past year, a year ago, we kicked off a compelling preaching grant that Lily Great gave us to invest in the preaching skills. And the most recent grant that we received was nurturing children in prayer and worship. And that's just launching in January. You're going to see some stuff at Midwinter about that. But this is for our children and youth to be engaged in the prayer and worship activities of the local congregation or in their own lives is part of what our aim is there. Embedded in that work is the work that Dominique Gilliard has done for the Justice Journey for Kids curriculum. It's a curriculum, but it's also an attitude and an approach to helping our kids come out of their formational experiences with a prayer and worship life that includes embracing justice initiatives. So we're pretty excited about all of those things, and we continue to work closely with Lily and wanting to um, our partnership with them to continue to invest in the clergy and the opportunities in the Covenant Church. So there's the credentialing side, there's the resourcing side, and then for our clergy who are living life and either life hits them hard or they hit life hard. And what I mean by that, life hits us hard. Sometimes there's
Mhm.
unexpected difficulties in relationships, in medical situations, in financial situations. We have the board of the ordered ministry cares for pastors in those situations, including providing therapeutic resources as needed, spiritual direction, and by providing, it doesn't mean we are the directors or the therapists, but we make sure that there is funding available for pastors to help them in those periods. And then if the board of the ordered ministry is also responsible for the ethical guidelines for covenant ministers, and in times in a pastor's career where they get outside of those ethical guidelines and there's a need for discipline, we are involved in the disciplinary process, and the board is a discernment body, and they provide care for pastors in those situations by helping to discern a path with two goals that we always have. One is the restoration of the pastor, and the second is the care for victims. And the restoration of the pastor does not always mean restoration to the place of employment. But that was my dog, by the way, who just had a surgery, and he's got one of those big old collars on his neck,
Oh,
and so I'm sitting here with him because we have to keep him calm.
yes.
So sorry about that. If you saw, wondered what was that that just showed up on his screen, that was
It's
our
okay.
dog.
That's life.
That's life, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
life comes. And so when life comes and pastors need either care or discipline, the board of the ordered ministry undertakes that work, and they meet. The board meets 2 to 4 times per year. When they are sitting, they are the ones who have the final say in what kind of work is done. And when they are not sitting, then by virtue of the way the covenant is structured, I receive the authority to act on behalf of the board of the ordered ministry when they're not sitting, and I do that with the partnership of my very capable team that includes Danielle and Marty, Karen Ingebretson, Jin Lee, and those are the directors that work in the credentialing, resourcing, and pastoral care and support areas. And so, Ruby, this is what we do. So it's credentialing, resourcing, and care and discipline. And by restoration, by the way, that doesn't always mean restoration of the pastor to their place of employment, because
Mhm.
that's it. We don't actually control the employment of the pastor. We have authority over their credential, not their employment, but the restoration of the personhood of the pastor in those situations. So,
Yeah, that's excellent.
yeah,
Um, well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what you do in the denomination. And I've been a part of other denominations that have not had these types of resources. And ministry is hard. It's also wonderful, but it's challenging, and especially um, in these post-pandemic times, or I don't know what we're calling it these days. That
that's as
in
good as anything.
our trying to survive COVID days. Um, I think just the impact on ministry has been tough. And so just knowing that you're not alone in ministry, that there are people looking out for your interests, that want to resource you, that want to come alongside you. I love that word restoration. That no matter the outcome, the goal is for your healing and flourishing and thriving
Yeah,
in ministry and in life. And so, um, I hope our youth leaders tune into this and that they access the resources, especially
yeah,
if they are credentialed. These are the great benefits of being a part of the denomination. And so we're gonna shift over to Danielle, and then I'll ask you both some questions at the end. But I wanted to introduce you to Danielle. She is the Director of Credentialing on our Serve Clergy staff for the ECC. She has served in the Covenant Denomination Administration since 1998 and joined the Serve Clergy team in 2001. She is a wealth of wisdom in history, let me tell you. Although her role has grown and expanded over the years, the ministerial credentialing process has always been a central focus of her work. She serves as an advisory member of the Board of Order of Ministry. Danielle attended North Park University and earned a BA in English literature and biblical and theological studies. She then went on to earn a MACM and a MA or an NNA from North Park Theological Seminary. That's a lot of letters. And Danielle spent her life participating in the Covenant Church and institutions. She was nurtured in her early stages of her faith journey at North Park Covenant Church in Chicago and now attends Bethany Covenant in St. Charles, Illinois. Danielle is married to Winston, and together they have three children, ages 19, 15, and 12. Did we forget anyone? Okay, good. Good. So, we have asked Danielle to come join us today, especially to share um, how our youth pastors can begin the credentialing process, um, what the involvement of the local churches, what the involvement of the conferences, and then the involvement of the denomination. And then maybe are there different types of on-ramps to be credentialed? What are kind of the key components of that? What does it mean to be in good standing? Um, Especially for folks that where English is not their first language, are there access points for our clergy? And then why get credentialed? Um, and so I know that this is fresh on the minds of our youth leaders. Oftentimes, the idea of credentialing, there's tons of barriers for our leaders. So whether it's financial or churches don't value credentialing for the role of a youth pastor or a children's worker. And yeah, just not even having access to be able to go to things like midwinter or our annual meeting. There's often uh, times where many of our youth leaders feel in the dark about the whole process. And so we thought we would bring it to them and hear your wealth and wisdom working in this area for so many years. So thank you for being here. And I'm really thankful for all of your work. You are one of the most humble leaders I know. And I was like, your job is not easy, and especially all the things you have to manage. So, really thankful for your time to be here today and share with our leaders.
Well, thank you, Ruby. That is so nice of you to say. And I am pleased that I can be here and speak to any youth leader worker who's here now or viewing this at a later time. I have slides. I didn't know if you wanted me to throw them up while I'm talking or if I should just talk through my points and then you'll send out my slide deck later.
Yeah, I'll share your slide deck in our
Okay.
cookies area.
Okay. Okay, then I'll just kind of talk through my points. But my aim here in this time was to, well, first of all, I acknowledge that folks watching this can be coming from a variety of places. Some are not credentialed at all. Some are or in discernment about it, as you said. Some are already in process. They've taken the initial steps. Some are already licensed and some may be ordained already. So I'm trying to kind of speak to a large group here, but probably more focusing on those who are newer to the process. So my goals in my remarks are to kind of go over the basics of credentialing, brief description of what credentialing is, what we mean when we say credentialing, brief overview of the types that we offer. Again, as you said, why get credentialed? Why bother? What's involved in that? Why would you choose to do it? Um, some go over some of the basic requirements and descriptions of the credentials themselves. And I'm choosing not to focus on certain categories. For example, the serve globally credential categories, because of the audience I'm talking to in this video are youth workers serving in local church context. So I'm going to stick with those categories. And then, as you said, I will also try to briefly address pathways for Latino leaders in particular, um, and then hit the elements of good standing as well. So that's a lot to cover. I'm going to try to just not talk to death. But um, so the first point is just what is credentialing? What do we mean by that? And it's the official recognition by the Evangelical Covenant Church that an individual has a genuine call to ministry and is gifted to serve in a ministerial vocation. So it's essentially the stamp of approval of the denomination, that a person's authorized to minister on behalf of the ECC. It's also an umbrella term that we use to refer to the various ministerial credential types that are within the ECC landscape. So if you hear people talk about credentials, we're referring to licenses, ordination, consecration, all of those. So just to keep that in mind. So in the ECC, we have two major categories of credentials. There are permanent credentials, which are for a lifetime, that a person has discerned that they wish to serve in the ECC for the duration of their vocational ministry life. And that discernment process involves years. And the final year, it's a year-long examination and discernment process that involves the local setting, uh, the denomination itself, both at the conference level and the denominational board level. And then the entire church participates in actually voting to bestow permanent credentials on this person. So in that way, permanent credentials are different because they indicate that this individual is good to go wherever the church may call that person. And so that's permanent credential types. The annually renewable credential types, aka licenses, as the name implies, they are temporary. They have to be renewed annually. Um, and it endorses the licensee for service to one particular ministry. So that's a qualitative difference between licenses and permanent credentials. So it expires when the person leaves that particular ministry setting. The person also has to go through an application and interview process. So there's a process associated with all of these, and a person should be aware of that. And everyone starts with a license. No one gets to leap over that and go straight to something like ordination. Licensure is a critical time of discernment on the part of the individual, their local church setting, and the denomination, your peers, who are determining if this is truly your calling for the duration of your ministry life, that service in the ECC is for you. So just wanted to touch on that. And I know that some of you may have heard this, but when we bestow a ministerial credential on someone, no matter which credential type it is, whether license or ordination, we are saying something about that person. So we can summarize this by saying that when we grant someone a credential in the ECC, we are saying at least four things about that person. Number one, that they are apostolic, meaning that the candidate has an ability to articulate the basic tenets of the Christian faith, and that they can communicate those truths to the people in their ministry setting? Can they keep the fires of the apostolic ministry alive and transpose it into their ministry context? If the answer is yes to that, then they can be eligible for a credential. So the second thing we're saying when we bestow a credential on someone is that the individual is called, meaning that they have experienced not only an individual calling from the Lord into vocational ministry, but that call has been confirmed by those around them, their family, their friends, their ministry setting, their local church or a context where they're serving also sees this and affirms it. And broaden it out even more. It's affirmed by your peers in ministry, those on the committee on ministerial standing that interview every single applicant for a credential. They're affirming it too. And then finally, the church as a whole is affirming it when they vote on each candidate. So the third thing that we're saying about a person when we bestow a credential on them is that they're competent, meaning that they are at least, if not proficient, at least learning to be proficient in the core pastoral arts of preach well, teach well, lead well, and care well. And then finally, they're a person of character, and that is probably the most important one. But is this candidate regularly involved in spiritual disciplines? That is, they're actively forming their character as a minister and as a Christian. Can they speak about how those disciplines are forming them? And really, can we entrust vulnerable people to them? Because that's what ministry often is. And so undergirding all of those things is also the issue of covenant compatibility. So that's key. Does the person understand the high points of covenant theology, ethos, or at least are they growing toward understanding? And are they a good fit? So that question of fitness. So as you can see, bestowing a credential is no small thing. It is not hoops that we make you jump through. It is a serious endeavor. It's careful discernment. It's prayerful process that involves many people. And so I think, though, that is a reason, back to the question, why would I get credentialed? Because it connects you to a wider body of accountability and support. And when you're credentialed, you will be a part of a collegium of ministers that meets regularly, that builds each other up through learning and fellowship. You will have voice and vote in business meetings. You'll be able to influence what the direction of at least where the ministerium goes and where the covenant goes. You can also say that your call has been authenticated by the broader church. You could say, look, I've been through this process. It involved significant vetting and interviews and paper. I had to articulate my theology, and my name was on the list for voting by the whole church. So to be able to point to that is significant because it indicates that you have been through a process. This isn't just my private sense of calling that, God has called me to the ministry. I've been able to, I've successfully completed a process that has verified that. Also on the church, I've only spoken about the individual side, but on the church side, the credentialing process allows the denomination to ensure that its ministers meet a certain standard of education and competence and health and wholeness and formation. And the process itself ensures that its ministers are adequately oriented to the ECC and can articulate why the ECC, why we'd want to be part of this movement and this body. So it helps bolster the church as well. So if you're taking notes on if I'm trying to make the case to my local setting about why they should consider sponsoring me or supporting me through this, It helps to solidify uh, uh, the church's covenant identity as well. And because you are going to be connected to this um, community of support and accountability, it helps the church because when in times of trouble, you have someone to call on that will come in and help in a situation. And as Herb alluded to, there are times when that inevitably happens. And so, um, a reason to seek credentialing is that you will have access to the resources of served clergy in times of crisis and when you need it. And even hopefully times before things get to a crisis point, there are many, many resources available to you that will help prevent it from reaching that point. So, um, I want to say too, good ministry, as we all know, is done every day by non-credentialed lay people, faithful lay people, or even just people serving. They see a job that needs to be done and they do it. They just step in and start doing it. But the ECC has always set apart certain people who are gifted and graced, formed and educated to handle the Word of God rightly, and are set apart to equip the people of God. And so, um, from its beginnings, the church has always had a formalized credentialing process and has elevated the importance of clergy training and education. So part of the reasons, why should I do this, or what's the point? And I think I already hit the importance of call. Every credentialing in the covenant is always contingent upon call. And what I mean by call is not just that internal call of God on your life, which has to be there, of course, by the way, but we also mean by call a formal ministry position in a ministry context. So are you serving in a place, in a role that is ministerial in nature? That has to be there in order for you to qualify to make progress in the credentialing system. Um, and in fact, it says in the rules for the order of ministry that in order for a person to qualify for a license, it requires significant involvement in the ministries of the church. And it lists them out in bullet points like that demonstrates significant involvement in a majority of the following areas: administering sacraments, conducting worship services, providing spiritual leadership, participating in the preaching and teaching ministry of the church, providing pastoral care, managing in a local setting. So if you're wondering if what am I is what I'm doing qualifying for a credential, take a look at that section of the rules and see if you can start building your case and look at your job description. If it's not listed in the job description, um, put it in there if you have a power over that, or just be in conversation with your leaders to have it accurately reflect what it is that you're doing. So just a word about that. Um, there is no minimum education threshold for any of the license categories, by the way. You don't already have to come in with seminary or even a bachelor's degree or even a high school diploma for that matter. That's kind of what's interesting about the covenant. It really throws the door open wide for anybody who is called. It doesn't mean we're going to leave you there. You have to commit
Mhm.
to embarking on a journey of growth and education and formation. But there isn't some kind of minimum bar education-wise that you have to already meet in order to apply. So just wanted to say that. Um, Real quickly, some of the steps for becoming licensed. Be a member of a covenant church, non-negotiable, have to have that. You have to have a call, as I said, to a covenant church or approved ministry. Um, Contact your conference office. Ruby said, what are the steps? What are the on-ramps? Well, um, you're going to definitely want to go to your conference office, talk to the conference administrator, have a consultation with that person about your setting. Um, they're trained, by the way, in all of this. They are experienced and they know the questions to ask you to help in this journey of discernment. They're also going to work with your church leadership because they don't want to get the process started if unless they solidly know that your church is behind this because as I'm going to get into, there are some significant financial obligations that are attached to credentialing that you need to be aware of and that your church needs to be aware of. And so they're going to want to know that you've had those conversations with your leadership in the local church before they send you the material. So anyway, they'll have a conversation with you to verify which credentialing category is the best fit for you, and then they'll send you the packet, the paperwork. And so briefly, the what to expect with that. There's a pre-screening process that every candidate has to go through. So that involves a psychological assessment, a baseline psych assessment that where you'll complete some testing and then have it be evaluated by um, professional therapists, have a debrief 1 hour conversation with a therapist. They'll then write up an evaluation summary and then send it to us. You have to release that report to the ECC in order to advance in the process. Um, and that's called the Fitness for Ministry assessment process. And you have to submit to a background check as well. So just so you're aware. There is also additional paperwork, such as a licensing paper that you have to write and then be interviewed by your conference committee on ministerial standing. As I mentioned, they're your peers in ministry, permanent credential holders who have been elected to this task, and it's their job to determine if you meet those criteria that I mentioned earlier: apostolic, called, competent person of character. That's the body. The comms is the body that will determine that and evaluate you. So if approved by the comms and if all of your paperwork is in order, it will be forwarded to my office, and you may then receive what's called an interim license. You'll be on the roster of ministers. You will be eligible for voice and vote and business meetings and have access to all of the resources that Serve Clergy provides. Your name will appear on the license list for final approval at the annual meeting of the church in June. But you have to remember to renew your license every spring. It's not automatic. You should expect to be in touch with your conference office to renew it. A lot of people forget that. And it's not for lack of the conference trying to reach out to you, but it's kind of amazing how often that sort of slips by people because life's busy, ministry's busy, but you have to renew your license every year. Remember, though, that credentialing is contingent upon call. So if you lose your call, if you go out of call, your license expires. So that's a point that also a lot of people miss that I just wanted to reiterate. Um, I know I'm going on here, but I could talk forever about
Yeah.
credentialing, and I don't. But I'll try to hit the high points here. Um, the ministry license is probably the most popular or sought ministry license category that we have. And it requires certain things that I want you to be aware of. It requires, in addition to all the what I just listed, being a member of a covenant church, having a call, once you hold it, you're going to be obligated to complete an orientation program if you're not already coming in with it, having it completed. So every person has to go through covenant orientation, which is a program of 4 courses that instruct you in covenant ethos, life, theology, history, 6 covenant life experiences, and 1 advising relationship. So just to be aware of that, it's administered primarily through North Park Theological Seminary. So you register with them, enroll there, sign up for classes through North Park. If you've already completed your degree through North Park, you should have been oriented through your curriculum. So that's one great benefit of doing your education at North Park, because it should be part, assuming you take the appropriate classes, it should be embedded in the curriculum, and you'll have completed orientation through your seminary degree. If you're coming in without having had seminary training at all, and you hold a ministry license, you will be expected to complete what we refer to as the core 4 seminary classes within 8 years of your first time license. The core 4 are different than the covenant orientation courses that I just referred to. The core 4 are survey courses in Old Testament, New Testament, systematic theology, and church history. They're not covenant specific. These are general survey courses that have to be taken at the seminary level for credit. And if you, they have to be taken at North Park, our denominational seminary. They're offered regularly in a variety of formats. If you're already coming in and you've done all or some of those, you don't have to do them again. Just send me the transcript. I'll mark them off as completed on your record. So those are education requirements associated with the license. Another big major obligation that is attached to a ministry license is enrollment in and participation in the Guidestone 403B plan. It's a retirement vehicle that we have set up for covenant clergy. It obligates your church to put in 12.5% of your compensation into that 403B on your behalf. So you'll be wanting to have conversation with your leadership team about that. The church has to have budgeted for that and be aware of it. And in some cases, they have to plan for it and build up to it. But have an awareness that that is going to be part of it, and have it on your list of discussion items to talk about with your pastor and or leadership team. So that's the ministry license. A lot of people though now are coming in, they're starting with the bivocational license, which is for those who are serving either as straight up volunteers, they're unpaid, but they're doing the work of ministry. It can also be for people who are part-time, basically working anywhere under 30 hours a week. They usually don't get benefits with their package, but because they're part-time. But the bivocational license is for people like that. Also for people who are truly bivocational, they are serving as pastors, but they have a day job that pays the bills. And so this category can be for any of those types of situations. Has the same requirements that I just listed of having a call, be a member of a covenant church, have to write the paper, do all the fitness for ministry screenings, all of that is the same. But once you receive the license, the education requirements are different than the ministry license. It's not as stringent of an education program. You're only required to read 4 books from a BVL reading list every year and write a book report on your reading. So instead of seminary, just it's reading 4 books per year. And then you only have to take one of the covenant orientation classes, the vocational excellence class, not the full CO program. So you have to take the vocational excellence class within 2 years, though, of receiving your first time license. So the BVL is what our most fastest growing license category, because as you probably know, it is the bivocational ministry setting is just becoming more the norm. And lots of churches are in tougher financial positions now, so all they can offer is a bivocational license. And I'm glad that we do have a pathway for that. And just because you may start with a BVL doesn't mean that you can't, over time, work on your seminary. You can work on having conversations with the church to build into their budget potential for contributing into the 403B for you, and then switch over. You could switch over to the ministry license and then eventually be on an ordination track, for example. So I think, Ruby, I'm not going to keep going on
Yeah.
the
No, those are great.
because I was going to talk about ordination and the ordination categories, but I think I'm going to just leave it at the licenses. I'll refer people to my slides, the slide deck.
Hmm.
And if they want more information about permanent credentials and the process for that, they can look at the slides or go to our website. Um, the Latino Leaders Pathway, I just wanted to mention, if we have leaders who are listening, or who know people who are primarily minister in the Spanish language, we have all of our paperwork available translated into Spanish. Interviews may be conducted in Spanish. That's especially true in certain conferences that have
Hmm.
a lot of Latino ministries, like the PSWC or Central Conference. Education and orientation may be completed through CHET, which is our theological institute in LA that trains ministry leaders for the covenant and beyond. But you can enroll in CHET and complete a ministerial diploma and be qualified for ordination to word and sacrament in our system. So I encourage you to visit chet.org if you want more information about that. Um, Good standing. I don't want to leave before mentioning this.
Hmm.
Um, all credentialed ministers are expected to maintain the elements of good standing. And this is whether you're a license holder, you're ordained, whatever it is, you're expected to be in good standing. And it consists of four things. One is payment of your ministerial dues, your annual dues, which varies depending on your conference, but it's in the range of about $150, $175 a year. Completion of your minister's profile form on CovConnect is the second. The third is completion of the yearly vocational growth tool, which is like a continuing education form. And then the fourth is to maintain regular healthy connections with ministerial colleagues. We just hope and expect that every credentialed clergy person will be regularly engaging with their colleagues by attending covenant events like Midwinter or their local clergy cluster or conference events, things like that. A person has to be in good standing in order to vote in business meetings, to be eligible to serve on boards and committees, and to be eligible to apply for SPE grants or other Lilly funded opportunities through Serve Clergy. So it's important to be in good standing. I think I'm going to wrap it up there,
Yeah.
Ruby, and then I'll leave time for questions.
Yeah. Well, having served on the ministerium, I know that that was a big piece of my role as secretary, is sharing about being in good standing. And so if you go on our covenant ministerium site, all of that is spelled out. And I believe even has like links to where to go to do your Cov Connect profile. But I think that that's so key, whether you are officially credentialed or not. Some of those key components are really important in our thriving in ministry. Um, I strongly encourage you to go through covenant orientation. We have a funny name for it. We say I love the Cov classes. And I remember when I first started off in the covenant, um, just dreading having to go to those classes and just the effort it took. But some of my best friends in ministry have come out of those experiences and have journeyed my way all through seminary. And so, really thankful for that. And just the opportunity that you get to be exposed to covenant leaders and identity and history and resources. And so, I strongly encourage you to go through that. Um, and I love what you had to say about the bivocational license and how that's being just a continued area that's growing for our leaders, especially in youth ministry. Um, Post-pandemic, I think the impact of our youth pastors finding calling or being able to sustain themselves financially, many have had to move into considering bivocational ministry. Um, and many are in the position of being lay leaders within the church, and having to support that role unofficially. And so I love that Serve Clergy is thinking through some of those growing areas of need and ministry. I'm curious, Reverend Herb, if you would just share, like, how does one access the resources that you shared? Just opportunities for our clergy to access the crisis fund, to get involved with cohorts, to think about different grants that are available. Like, how does one find that information?
Thanks, Ruby. Great question. So you talked about the Minister's Crisis Fund, and that is also a fund that we administer in the Serve Clergy team, and that's for immediate financial crises that pastors hit, and varying amounts of need, up to $3,000 for a particular crisis. And we're there to help provide immediate relief for financial crises. Now, the simplest way to access those is if you go to the website, thecovchurch.org/serve dash clergy, and you'll find links there to access those. I'll simply say, being directed to websites when you're in crisis is not always helpful. And if you remember my name, herb.frost@covchurch.org, and send me an email, I will make sure that gets routed to the correct place for crisis and needs. For resourcing needs, I'll say similarly, go to the website and it will have links that will direct you to the appropriate place. We have people responsible for those right now, but the website will have those links be live for however, if if the people responsible change in the years ahead, they'll still be the right place. But Marty Berger is the one currently who is overseeing the resourcing for things like sabbatical, for coaching, for spiritual direction. And by the way, coaching is a tremendous resource that we have seen increasing in the covenant in the past 4 or 5 years. And it's given to pastors who want to excel in their work. It's not it's not a remedial thing. It's not, you're not doing well, so you need a coach. It's actually, you're doing well and you want to do better. So we want to provide you with a coach to help you excel in your setting, where you are able to have a trusted conversation with somebody who can hear your situation and help you create paths forward for whatever particular situations it is that you're facing. It's a tremendous resource. So Ruby, basically contact Serve Clergy through the website. If you forget everything except one thing, herb.frost@covchurch.org. And if I receive your email, I will either respond directly or forward it to the appropriate person.
Yeah. And I believe that.
Yeah.
Both Danielle and Herb are good at answering their emails. And so I also just want to encourage our youth pastors, feel free to reach out to your regional coach.
Yep.
And they can help get you in contact with many of these resources that Serve Clergy offers. And as you're considering the credentialing process, they would be good people to talk to. Your local conference, your superintendent or administrative officers, the comms team. I know that many of us dread writing papers. And I remember going through like my licensing application and then my final credential paper, and um, accessing some of the comms team and even just the vets of ministry who have gone through the process. Talk to people. There are lots of people out there that would be glad to help you through the writing process. through those papers and help you process through all the different questions that will be asked. I know it can be an intimidating process, and so just know that that is a resource. Um, I wish Marty was here. I was so bummed, but she's doing some self-care and going on sabbatical. We were emailing each other. I'm like, quit answering my emails. You're on sabbatical. But I know that for many of our clergy, in the churches that they serve, there is not like a sabbatical policy. So, how would one go about like starting that conversation in the church, especially when they're desperately feeling like I need some time of rest or reflection or renewal? How does one advocate for that?
No, that's a great question, Ruby. And I'll be direct and say we offer $1,000 matching sabbatical grant. And the reason that we have it as a matching grant is because we want to provide an impetus to our pastors to initiate a conversation with their leadership about sabbatical. And by saying, if the church can provide $1,000, I have another $1,000 to match. And it provides some some incentive to have conversation both for the immediate sabbatical, but also for that to begin to be embedded in the thinking and the ethos of a local ministry setting, that sabbatical is normal and natural in the life of a minister. Extensive studies on flourishing in ministry, thriving in ministry, have identified two barriers to pastoral resilience, primary barriers, and one is stagnation and the other is isolation. And the sabbaticals address both of those things, because the stagnation, the pastor can choose what to invest in reading or process, and the isolation. Many of our pastors, a big part of their sabbatical is to connect more deeply with family or ministry colleagues over that 6 week period of time or so, to do a deeper work of connecting and identifying where they are stagnant and where they are isolated.
Mm-hmm.
So start the conversation. If you need somebody, if your church that says we don't understand this, contact Serve Clergy, and we'd be glad to have a conversation with local church leaders as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I I I know oftentimes there's that hurdle of having to fight that battle on your own. And so I think today is just a great reminder that youth leaders, you are not alone and
Yes.
you have staff that are here to help advocate for you and just help you process through how to initiate conversations around credentialing or how to initiate conversations around self-care and even just access to be able to go to things like midwinter youth workers connection continuing ed opportunities. I think all of those are really important. I really appreciate your time, and I know we could probably spend hours talking about all that is covered under this ministry area, but I do strongly encourage you to go to covchurch.org slash serve dash clergy to check out the resources there. That will be your friend. Also, make sure you're signing up for communications because oftentimes within the denomination and even your local conference, you'll hear about many of these resources, different groups to join, how to get connected with spiritual directors. Those will be offered in those places. My last question is very important. What is your favorite tradition during Christmas or New Year's? It could be something you love to eat or love to do as a family, or I don't know, a book you like to read or a song you like to listen to?
Yeah. Thank you, Ruth. What a great question.
Yeah.
At the very earliest memories for me of Christmas were the anticipation of the opening of the gifts, but the process to get there was to sit with my dad reading the Christmas story from Luke and walking through that. And then we prayed as a family. We prayed through the Lord's Prayer. And it
Yeah.
was just a very meaningful time of making sure that Christmas actually was a time of of anticipating the advent of Christ. And I
Mm.
think that I heard somebody talk recently. There's three comings of Christ. There's the first coming of Christ. There's the ultimate, the second coming of Christ. But in between time, there's that passage in Ephesians that says, "My prayer is that Christ may dwell in your heart through faith." And that's the third advent that I think that process of hearing the Christmas story, praying through the Lord's Prayer, and as part of and there's other fun traditions too, but that's the one that is when that's what came to my mind as soon as you
Yeah.
asked the question.
Oh, that's awesome. How about you, Danielle?
Yeah, I think, well, I don't bake. I'm not a baker, but the only time of year that I bake is at Christmas. And I just get into the whole process. I pull out my mixer and I have all my ingredients, and then I put Christmas movies on while I bake for several days. And um, I just kind of enjoy giving myself over fully to the process of that. And then
Hmm.
just to, you all your senses are engaged, like the smells. And then um and my kids are just around, and they don't really want to help me with the baking, but they'll come around when it's done and they'll want to eat some of it. And
Yeah.
so that's I don't know, it just feels very homey to me. And in my life, I don't get a lot of time to do that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
I look forward to prioritizing, like that's my work for for these few days.
Mhm.
Um and then of course you have the benefit of this tasty food that you get to give away,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So that's what came to mind.
Yeah, I love that. I was visiting my niece in New York and had to drive her to a bunch of basketball games. And as we were driving home, we kept stumbling across these incredible light displays on people's lawns. And I used to love that as a child, just jumping in the car with the family, even in our PJs, and just driving around to look at Christmas lights. I think there is something about just the rhythm of life during this season of getting to slow down and to pay attention. And even in the midst of the chaos of trying to finish the end of the year projects and family things and just life, I think it always kind of drew me back to the hope of Christ and the light that He has brought to this world. And yeah, so just even that those small little things would draw me to Jesus during the season. So I hope for all of our youth workers and our Cov office clergy and staff that they would find those moments to slow down, to be still, to enter into the Word, to enter into those traditions that draw peace and hope and love and joy during this Advent season. So thank you again for coming, and we look forward to just the impact and the support and connection that this will bring for many of our youth workers. So thanks for coming.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Ruby.
Ruby.